days in Washington, most of Congress is focused on the fiscal cliff. But for members of the incoming freshman class, the past weeks have been orientation time. That's when newly elected representatives and senators learn their way around the Capitol. Among them is 32-year-old Eric Swalwell, a Dublin city councilman and Alameda County assistant DA. He defeated 20-year incumbent Pete Stark, a fellow Democrat, in a newly drawn congressional district stretching from Hayward to Dublin. I spoke with Swalwell earlier this evening from Capitol Hill. Well, Congressman-elect Swalwell, thanks for joining us.
Oh, happy to be here.
So you've been at orientation now. You've been there a couple of weeks. So what have you learned?
You know, this is the end of the second week of orientation. I was here right after the election. And now we know where our office is going to be. We have hired staff. I've learned how the House floor proceedings work, how we can best represent the people in the 15th Congressional District. We have a lot of ideas that we learned during the campaign, and now I know where to take those ideas, how to make them go through the legislative process and then get them on the floor, so hopefully my colleagues and I can work together to help the folks who sent me here.
Now, you're not a stranger to the Capitol. You were an intern for former Congresswoman Ellen Tauscher. What's it like to go back as a Congressman-elect?
That's right. Back in 2001, about 11 years ago, I was Congresswoman Tauscher's intern, and I would give the tours and open the mail and do some research. But back then, it was a very wide-eyed experience for me to be in the Capitol. And the very first night I was here, Representative Hoyer, Steny Hoyer, the minority whip, took us around on a tour, and I recognized many of the locations because I had given the same tour before. But then when he took me onto the House floor, that's when I realized it was real. I was here and called and ready to serve.
Well, let me ask you, when you ran against Pete Stark, the entire Bay Area delegation from Nancy Pelosi on down opposed you. They supported Pete Stark. What kind of reception are you getting from them?
Actually, I've been very impressed with how many of them have reached out to me and offered their support to get our office off the ground, to send over resumes of people they thought would be good for our staff. I mean, they've been just so generous. So I've pledged back to them that I want to work together because the issues of the 15th Congressional District are very similar to the congressional districts throughout the Bay Area. And we have jobs, transportation, housing, our seniors. They all have the same issues in the Bay Area, and I've actually worked very closely with my colleagues already about what we're going to do together in the 113th Congress to help the folks back at home.
I wonder if you feel, if because they didn't support you, that you have a measure of independence that perhaps you wouldn't have had if you'd run with their support and they'd helped you raise money and that kind of thing.
Well, we did arrive here on our own. It was a very grassroots, local campaign supported by local volunteers and elected officials. But the campaign's over, and now folks want us to come back here and work together, not just with my colleagues in the Bay Area, but with folks across the aisle. And that's what I plan to do. I do plan to keep that independent streak with me, knowing that I do have to work with others, compromise when necessary. But the principles of growing our economy and making sure that local, made in America jobs are going to be coming to our district, I think we're ready to do that.
You're the person you defeated, Pete Stark, was somewhat erratic in the campaign. And I'm wondering, how your relationship with him is now. Has he talked with you since you've been back there, or has he pretty much moved on, and have you moved on as well?
Well, we reached out and attempted to contact him, but did not have any success, and he has not called us, but that's okay. I know our offices are communicating to each other through various staff members, because we want to be ready on day one, because there's so many constituent services that will need to be provided, and so our offices are working with his office to make sure that it's a seamless handoff, and the voters won't know the difference as far as what the casework is when we start on January 3rd, and we'll be ready.
And what about the issues? You're a Democrat, he's a Democrat, he was a very liberal Democrat. How do you see yourself being different from him, not just in terms of demeanor or behavior, but on the issues?
Well, the Lawrence Livermore Laboratory, one of the largest employers in the district, he and I differed greatly on that. He was not a supporter, and I recognize that the work they do there on our energy security and also to make sure that we keep our country safe is very important. They employ so many employees, but having a member of Congress who will invest in them so that we can take those green energy jobs, the technology they work on to make us more energy independent and rely less on foreign sources of oil, well, I want to transfer those technologies and innovation out to the private sector so we can grow our local economy and also make our earth a little bit healthier.
What about something like the high-speed rail? I'm not sure what your position is on that, but I'm wondering, transportation, of course, is a big issue for your district. Where do you stand on that? And in general, transportation, what difference do you want to make there while you're back there in Congress?
I am seeking a spot on the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee. There's no member in the Bay Area today who sits on that committee. And of course, as you know, just recently the California legislature and the governor have signed a bill that will provide billions in funding for the high-speed rail. So I want to make sure that there is a federal partner and an advocate in Congress who supports that.
Eric, we're getting to the end, but quickly, you're replacing someone with 40 years of experience. The House works on seniority. You have no seniority at all. How are you going to develop clout in a short time so that your constituents are well represented?
Well, you know, with the House being without earmarks anymore, it really rewards workhorses. People who know how to go to the different agencies, are willing to put in the work, make the case for their district. So the seniority system is starting to no longer be in place because of earmarks being gone. So I know that I'll roll up my sleeves and work hard to deliver local transportation projects, make sure we have policies that help our local economy. But you know, the work that I've done in the first few weeks here, reaching out across the aisle to those 80 or some odd members of Congress who will be new, just like me. You know, I think it's those early partnerships during these formative times as we start to learn how the Congress works, that's going to pay dividends down the road. So I can go to a member across the aisle, and because of the bond we formed in this opening orientation part of our service, I think that'll serve the people in the 15th Congressional District very well.
All right, Congressman-elect, safe travels to you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, and please have me back.
You bet.